The toothpaste rule, reclaiming peace in an age of algorithm-driven outrage. 1. The digital cacophony, finding stillness in the noise. We find ourselves navigating an era defined by what has been aptly described as sobering days of commotion and contention. Our modern existence is no longer just a physical journey but a constant traversal of a digital cacophony where voices, whether profound or petty, verified or vitriolic, are multiplied exponentially. In this polarized landscape, our innate human desire for peace often feels like a relic of a slower age, drowned out by the thundering sounds of contempt that define our social feeds and public discourse. When confronted with the stress of this social phenomenon, our primitive instinct is to reciprocate the kinetic energy of contention. We feel a reflexive need to push back with equal force. However, the most sophisticated solutions to modern anxiety are often entirely counterintuitive. Navigating today's world requires a shift in perspective, a move away from the loud, reactive impulses of the crowd, and toward a guide for living that prioritizes quiet strength over performative outrage. 2. Boundary lines, not battle lines. Peacemaking as agency. A pervasive modern myth suggests that peacemaking is a synonym for passivity, that to be a peacemaker is to become a doormat for the disparagement of others. In reality, true peacemaking is a reclamation of agency. It is an act of persuasion in the highest sense, sharing one's deepest convictions with total clarity, yet remaining entirely void of the malice that usually accompanies disagreement. The challenge of our time is to learn the nuance of boundary lines versus battle lines. It is possible to hold an unyielding position on a value without turning the person standing across from us into a casualty of war. Cannot boundary lines exist without becoming battle lines? President Russell M. Nelson. Nowhere is this power more evident than in the strategic use of silence. When Christ stood before the chief priests and was vehemently accused, he chose to remain quiet. In our modern clapback culture, we are conditioned to view silence as a loss. But Christ's silence was the ultimate power move. It was a refusal to play by the aggressor's rules. To resist the impulse to respond is not a sign of weakness, but a sign of supreme self-possession. 3. The toothpaste rule. The ethics of digital connection. In our rush to engage, we often forget the irreversible nature of digital interactions. Consider the toothpaste tube. One may squeeze it with abandon or gentle pressure, but once the contents have made their mess, the process is impossible to reverse. The information, images, and vitriol we share via our devices function under the same law. Once a thought is digitized, we lose all sovereignty over its reach. To navigate this, we must pivot from seeking attention to seeking connection. The distinction is vital for wellness. Seeking attention, this involves sharing boastful, shocking, or sexual content to garner shallow validation. This temporary hit of dopamine ultimately weakens our sense of identity, leaving us dependent on the shifting whims of an audience. Seeking connection, this focuses on genuine uplift and the building of real-world relationships. A vital mood check is required here. Our tongues and our thumbs are hardest to tame when we are emotional. If your mood is compromised by anger or sadness, the thumb should remain still. True confidence does not emerge from a notification tray. It comes from an internal grounding that exists independent of a follower count. 4. The narrative trap. Why we cast ourselves as the victim. Human beings are essentially storytelling animals, but we have a dangerous tendency to use our narrative gifts to justify our own bitterness. We possess a remarkable talent for crafting stories that condemn the actions of others as egoistic and unforgivable, while simultaneously canonizing our own motives as pure and innocent. This is the tragedy found in the 13th century Welsh parable of the prince's dog. Returning home to find his dog covered in blood and his child's cradle overturned, the prince, convinced of the dog's betrayal, killed the animal in a fit of rage. Only then did he hear the cry of his living child and discover a dead wolf nearby. The dog had been a savior, not a predator. We often prefer the comfort of being self-justified in our anger over the complexity of the actual facts. We satisfy our consciences by casting ourselves as the hero of a tragedy that we ourselves are writing. Often we justify our anger and satisfy our consciences by telling ourselves stories about the motives of others that condemn their actions as unforgivable and egoistic, while, at the same time, lifting our own motives as pure and innocent. President Dieter F. Uchtdorf. The mental exercise. The next time you feel a surge of righteous anger toward another, pause and ask, what part of the wolf's story am I missing? Breaking the narrative trap requires the humility to realize our perspective is rarely the whole truth. 5. The genius of the Sunday school answer. In moments of crisis, we have a tendency to look for grand revolutionary solutions, intellectual silver bullets that will fix our lives in one stroke. Emma Adams reflected on this common trap. noting how she once sought profound questions and big, new insightful answers to avoid the redundancy of basic habits. Yet, in a hardening world, it is precisely these basic fundamentals that provide the resilience we crave. The most sophisticated challenges of the soul are usually resolved by the most elemental practices. Elder Neil A. Maxwell argued that these fundamentals are how we perfect that which is lacking in our faith. They are the difference between merely enduring a trial and enduring well. Effective resilience is built on 4 pillars serving those around us: studying the scriptures and the best books, praying with sincerity, worshiping as part of a community. When we cease nurturing our foundation in these 4 ways, we become vulnerable to the cynicism of the age. 6. The ethics of being a resource. Self-reliance as generosity. We often frame self-reliance education, financial literacy, and temporal preparedness as a pursuit of personal security. However, within the philosophy of provident living, self-reliance is actually an act of radical generosity. The purpose of preparedness is to become responsible, generous, mature, and kind. This is the ethics of being a resource. We cannot calm the commotion of the world if our own internal and temporal house is on fire. The logic is as practical as it is spiritual. How can we feed the hungry if we ourselves are hungry? Obtaining job skills, paying tithes, and maintaining a reserve of resources are not acts of hoarding. They are the necessary foundations that allow us to help others through their own crises. By being prepared, we transition from being acted upon by the world's tragedies to being a powerful force for good within them. 7. Conclusion. Moving beyond the circle of contention. Peace is not found by waiting for the entire world to go quiet. It is found by taking small, divine steps within our own immediate circle. It is discovered in the counterintuitive willingness to be the first to apologize, even when a conflict wasn't our fault, and in the disciplined habit of listening more than we speak. While we cannot govern the algorithm-driven outrage of the digital world, we retain absolute sovereignty over our own responses. We can choose to withdraw from the circle of anger and move toward the quiet work of service and connection. In a world that demands we react, what would happen if we chose to simply listen or to be the first to offer an olive branch for a conflict we didn't even start? The most rebellious act in a loud world is to be a child of God who remains still.